The alien fleet arrived without warning, a gleaming armada of colossal ships that filled the skies with their ominous presence. They hailed from a coalition of species that had, for centuries, carved out a reputation as the galaxy's unquestioned rulers. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. Warp drives that bent space, energy shields that could withstand 1,000 nuclear blasts, and weapons capable of erasing entire cities with a single blast. Earth had no hope, no chance, and the aliens knew it. The species of the invasion fleet, the Pharaxi, the Zenith, and the Alum, had long viewed Earth as an insignificant dot in the vastness of space, a primitive world, isolated, filled with creatures who had never once managed to achieve space travel on their own. The humans were curious, yes, but their technologies were archaic by galactic standards. Their strongest weapons were still rudimentary, barely capable of making a dent in the smallest of interstellar vessels. It was the perfect target. For weeks before their arrival, the alien fleet had watched Earth from a distance, studying its defenses and marveling at the planet's failure to develop any meaningful form of resistance. The Galactic Coalition's intelligence reports had been clear. Earth was a blue and green orb with a population of roughly 8 billion. Too many to destroy outright, but far too disorganized and divided to pose any real threat. The idea of resistance seemed laughable. After all, humans had been fighting amongst themselves for millennia, with warlords and generals using guns, tanks, and bombs, while the galaxy had long since moved on to energy weapons and nanotech. The aliens saw Earth as a small, weak planet, ripe for subjugation. The first wave of invasion came with a devastating shock. The aliens released a barrage of laser strikes that vaporized the outer atmosphere in strategic zones, making it impossible for Earth's governments to communicate across continents. Communications went dark, and cities across the globe fell silent as civilians watched from their windows in horror, not knowing if their lives would be the next to end. The first casualty was a massive energy tower in the Pacific Northwest, targeted with such precision that it sent ripples through Earth's power grids, plunging the western United States into darkness. It was the first of many. Across the globe, national militaries scrambled to respond, launching their fastest jets and missiles, but their efforts were quickly thwarted. Earth's defense systems were outdated, built for a world of conventional warfare, not the advanced, almost mythical technology now hovering above their heads. The alien ships remained untouched, immune to anything humanity could muster. Fighter jets screamed through the sky, their pilots desperate to do something, anything, only to be picked off one by one, their engines bursting into flames as they collided with the alien shields, unable to penetrate them. In Washington, D.C., the president watched the skies from his office, face grim and set. The intelligence reports had all indicated that Earth was defenseless. But even now, with the ships hovering above, he refused to believe it was over. Despite the overwhelming odds, a spark of defiance began to flicker in the heart of humanity. But that spark seemed so small, so insignificant against the vast darkness above. The president turned to his advisors, his voice steady, but with a quiet panic beneath it. Prepare the global response. All of it. Whatever we have left. Across the world, humanity braced for the inevitable. They had been told they were weak, that their technology could never measure up. The aliens believed they had already won. But even as their fleet rained destruction down on Earth, something was shifting. Something was awakening in the human spirit. And the aliens didn't see it coming. The stage is set for the conflict, with humanity facing overwhelming odds. The aliens' confidence in their superiority is clear, but there's a subtle hint that Earth's spirit is more resilient than they realize. The story sets the tone for the surprise to come, with Earth's defenders trying to find a way to retaliate against a force that seems invincible. The skies above Earth burned with fire as alien ships rained down destruction. Cities crumbled, whole nations reeled in disbelief, and for the first time in centuries, the human race was faced with a threat that seemed too powerful to overcome. Alien soldiers, pale, tall, and unblinking, marched across the cities, laying waste to what little remained after the bombardment. The invaders were systematic, surgical in their destruction, making it clear that Earth's defenses were no match for their superior technology. Yet, something began to stir beneath the surface, an undercurrent of resistance that even the aliens, with all their power and intelligence, could not foresee. In the ruins of New York City, where the streets were choked with dust and debris, a small group of survivors huddled in a darkened subway station. They were just ordinary citizens, an off-duty cop, a software engineer, an elderly woman, and a few others, none of them soldiers or leaders, just people who refused to give up. The cop, whose name was Marcus, had seen his entire precinct burned to the ground, his comrades lost in the chaos. But as the world around him fell apart, he found himself unable to do nothing. It was instinct, survival, the will to protect his own. He turned to the others and said, "We need to fight back. We can't just let them have this." There were murmurs of agreement, hesitant at first, but then something shifted. The engineer, a young woman named Jenna, stepped forward. "I've been studying their technology," she said, eyes wide with disbelief. "I think I can hack into their communications. If I can access their command network, maybe we can disrupt their control. We can slow them down." It was a long shot, a dangerous one. But in that moment, it was all they had. Elsewhere, in Paris, a group of fighter pilots, most of them civilians with no military experience, were quickly recruited and thrust into the sky. Among them was Etienne, a former commercial airline pilot who had watched helplessly as his country was torn apart by the alien invaders. But now, driven by a fierce determination, he took to the skies in an old Mirage fighter, one of the last operational jets left on the continent. The controls felt foreign beneath his hands, but he didn't care. He had one goal: to survive and take as many of the invaders down as possible. As Etienne climbed higher into the burning sky, he spotted one of the alien ships, a sleek, silver craft that moved with unnatural speed. He hesitated for a split second, then pressed the throttle forward. The jets he and the others piloted were outdated, but they were nimble, and the aliens seemed unaware of just how dangerous desperation could be. Back in the heart of the United States, a group of engineers in a hidden underground bunker worked frantically to reverse engineer the wreckage of the downed alien drones. Despite the advanced technology of their enemies, the humans had something the aliens didn't: a limitless capacity for ingenuity. They could see what had been broken and adapt it in ways the aliens had never expected. Using salvaged components, they built makeshift EMP devices designed to knock out the aliens' advanced energy shields, if only for a few seconds. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The first shot came from an unexpected source: an old, barely functional missile silo in the Midwest. The silo had been abandoned for years, its warheads long deactivated. But in the face of the alien threat, a group of civilians had restored the old system, determined to help in any way they could. The missile streaked toward the nearest alien ship, striking the enemy vessel in a moment of sheer luck. The explosion wasn't enough to destroy the ship, but it sent shockwaves through the alien fleet, forcing them to scramble. In space, the alien commanders watched in confusion. Their fleets, once so invincible, were now being harassed by a planet they had long dismissed as incapable of resistance. Small victories, each one a thorn in their side, began to mount. Every unexpected tactic, every civilian-led counterattack, seemed to defy the aliens' expectations. As the hours turned into days, they realized that Earth was not the easy conquest they had assumed. The human race, for all its frailties, was fighting back with a ferocity the invaders could not comprehend. Each alien casualty, each blown-up ship, only seemed to fuel the humans' resolve. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to quash resistance within hours, but now they faced something far more dangerous: a species willing to sacrifice everything to protect its home. As the first wave of Earth's counterattacks took shape, The aliens' confidence began to erode. They had underestimated the humans. And now, they were paying the price. We see humanity begin to fight back in unexpected ways, using everything at their disposal, from hacking alien systems to repurposing old military technology. Despite being outgunned and outmatched, Earth's people find strength in unity, ingenuity, and sheer will, setting the stage for the surprises to come. The aliens, still confident in their superiority, begin to realize that Earth may not be the weak, defenseless world they had believed. The chaos of Earth's first real resistance was like a sudden, unwelcome storm. The aliens had expected swift and effortless dominance, but instead, they were faced with an enemy that refused to stay down. Their fleet, once so confident, now found itself repeatedly stung by unexpected attacks. Small groups of human insurgents, scattered across the globe, were proving far more disruptive than anyone had anticipated. The first true sign of trouble for the invaders came from a group of hackers led by Jenna, the engineer from New York. After days of relentless work, she managed to crack open the communication network of the alien fleet, using a series of loopholes in their encrypted signal system. With the help of a few brave allies, Jenna was able to send a virus into the alien fleet's command protocols, causing a temporary shutdown of their targeting systems. For the first time, Earth's fighter jets had a real chance. In the skies above Paris, HFY's makeshift squadron of pilots, each flying outdated jets, found themselves in a position they hadn't even dared to hope for. With alien vessels temporarily blinded by the hack, the humans surged in, dodging fire as they launched a barrage of missiles. Though the human jets were slow and their payload small compared to the advanced alien ships, it was enough to take down one of the smaller vessels, a sleek, heavily armored scout ship. The alien response was swift but disorganized. Ships scrambled, and the attacking vessels began to weave erratically, attempting to recover from their temporary blindness. The humans, who had been thrown together at random, now fought with a surprising amount of coordination, as if an unspoken understanding had formed between them. For a brief moment, the skies above Earth were filled with sparks and explosions, as Earth's unpolished and desperate counteroffensive found its mark. The sight of an alien ship falling from the sky, shattered and burning, was a victory that spread like wildfire. For the first time in the invasion, the humans had the upper hand. On the ground, pockets of resistance formed into something more than just survival. Marcus, the off-duty cop from New York, led a ragtag band of civilians who had seized an alien cargo drop, using it to reverse engineer the weapons it contained. They weren't soldiers, but they fought like they had nothing left to lose. A few miles away, a former soldier named Sarah, who had been living in hiding, gathered local resistance groups to ambush an alien supply convoy. It was a small skirmish, insignificant in the grand scale of the invasion. But the message it sent was clear. Earth was not going to give up without a fight. Back in orbit, the alien fleet's commanders convened to assess the situation. The strategy had been simple: bombard Earth's major cities, neutralize their communications, and overpower any resistance quickly. But the sheer unpredictability of humanity's responses had shaken them. The Zenith general, Cyril, clenched his fists as he reviewed reports. His pride had been wounded by the loss of a ship, a loss that had caused more disruption than it should have. He had expected Earth to crumble, not to push back. Cyril turned to the Faraxi admiral, whose green eyes narrowed with frustration. "This is not what we were promised. These creatures, they adapt faster than we anticipated." The Faraxi admiral nodded gravely. "We've underestimated them. Their ability to use anything around them as a weapon, tools they should have abandoned centuries ago, is unsettling." The council room filled with murmurs of doubt. The Alum, usually the most optimistic of the invaders, began to question their original plan. Perhaps, suggested one of their diplomats, we should consider a shift in tactics. Earth is resilient in ways we do not understand. We could either destroy them completely or see if they could be useful allies. Xarel's piercing gaze silenced the room. "No, we finish this, but we'll have to adapt our approach. They are far more dangerous than we thought." Meanwhile, on the ground, humanity's response continued to grow bolder. Jenna's team, after several more days of hacking and interference, successfully managed to disrupt the alien fleet's communication relay, causing a critical malfunction in their power grid. This time, the humans didn't stop at disabling their targeting systems. They'd learned how to inflict pain, how to sow confusion and fear. The alien fleet was wounded, and the Earthlings were just getting started. What the aliens hadn't realized was that in their arrogance, they had triggered something far more dangerous than a battle. They had awakened the full might of humanity's ingenuity and willpower, a force unlike any they had faced before. The invaders may have had the technology, but they had underestimated humanity's greatest strength, its refusal to be conquered. The theme of unexpected resistance, showing how humanity's ingenuity and resilience begin to cause real damage to the alien fleet. The aliens, initially confident in their superiority, are now forced to reconsider their tactics as they face an enemy that's far more dangerous than they imagined. The part ends with a growing sense of tension and uncertainty for the invaders, setting the stage for an even more intense conflict to come. The alien fleet, once poised to sweep across Earth like a tide, now found itself mired in uncertainty. The damage they had sustained from Earth's unexpected counterattacks was mounting, and the invaders were beginning to question their earlier assumptions. Earth's resilience, once dismissed as a fluke, was now becoming a serious problem. What had started as a conquest to subdue a primitive world was quickly turning into a protracted, unpredictable struggle. And as far as the aliens were concerned, there was one thing that stood out above all: humanity's unexpected ability to improvise. On Earth, a captured alien officer, one of the few survivors from the wreckage of the destroyed scout ship, was being held by human forces in a makeshift interrogation facility deep underground. It had been days since the aliens' capture, and though the humans had learned little from him initially, something had shifted. There was a desperation in his eyes, the fear of an invader who knew his kind could no longer rely on their overwhelming technological advantage. Jenna, the engineer who had masterminded much of the hacking and sabotage, was brought in to assist in the interrogation. She had been working tirelessly with her team to reverse engineer the alien tech, trying to figure out how to use it against them. But she had another goal now. She needed answers. "Why did you come to Earth?" she asked, her voice calm but probing. The alien officer, a tall, pale figure with an angular face and large black eyes, remained silent for a long time. It had been drilled into them that fear was a weakness. They had conquered countless worlds, all of them quaking at their might, but Earth was different. This world, this species, was not showing fear. It was showing adaptability. It was showing an almost animalistic will to survive. The officer's expression flickered for just a second before his voice rasped. "You are unpredictable. Your species should not be able to do what you are doing. You should have folded by now." Jenna pressed further. "You thought we were defenseless. Did you really believe that? You didn't even bother to understand us, did you? We're not just survivors. We're fighters. You've never faced anything like us." The alien's hesitation was the only answer she needed. As humanity continued to fight, the picture that had once seemed clear, an easy conquest, was now shattering. The more the aliens tried to subdue Earth, the more they realized that their own preconceived notions were what had made them vulnerable. For centuries, they had conquered worlds by overwhelming them with force, never once considering that the enemy might fight back with something as unpredictable as sheer ingenuity. The Zenith General Xarel pored over the data coming from Earth's remaining strongholds. There were patterns, yes, but they were unlike anything he had encountered. Humanity's greatest strength lay not in their military power, but in their ability to quickly adapt to ever-changing circumstances. They didn't have to follow the rules of war as the aliens knew it. They bent and broke them. They've learned too quickly, Xarel muttered, his fingers tightening into fists as he reviewed reports of another alien ship falling to human resistance. Their ability to reverse engineer our technology, to use it against us, it's unprecedented. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice from across the command room. It was an Alum diplomat, a species known for its scientific prowess, and once considered a voice of reason among the invaders. "Perhaps we've made a mistake," she said, her tone tinged with a strange caution. "Their intelligence, their capacity to adapt. What if it's not just a fluke? What if Earth itself is the key? We've seen this before with other species, but never like this. The humans, they might actually be more advanced than we thought." Xarel's eyes narrowed. He could feel the unease spreading among his commanders. It wasn't just the human success that was troubling. It was the nagging feeling that they had underestimated Earth's potential from the beginning. Back on Earth, as the resistance continued to grow, the aliens started to realize something even more disconcerting. It wasn't just their technology that was vulnerable, it was their way of thinking. The aliens were used to simple, predictable wars, battles that followed known formulas. But Earth had no such formula. The human response was chaotic, disorganized, but immensely effective. Every time they believed they had crushed resistance in one part of the world, it flared up again somewhere else. No single alien strategy could quell this growing fire. At a remote military base, in what had once been the French countryside, a squadron of rogue soldiers and engineers worked feverishly to assemble a weapon that could potentially change the course of the war. An EMP device capable of disabling the alien fleet's central control systems. It was a long shot, but the stakes had never been higher. Humanity had been forced to operate with what it had, constantly improvising and adjusting to new challenges. And this time, they had a weapon capable of doing far more than any missile or bullet. The alien fleet had underestimated Earth's greatest asset, the unexpected power of human resourcefulness. And now, it was becoming clear that what they had assumed was Earth's greatest weakness was, in fact, its greatest strength. The sense that the aliens are beginning to recognize the extent of their miscalculations. Humanity's ability to adapt and innovate, once seen as a weakness, is now its greatest weapon. Jenna's interrogation of the alien officer reveals how the invaders are starting to see Earth in a new light, setting up an escalating tension as the aliens realize they've been playing into humanity's hands. The story grows ever more unpredictable, and Earth's resilience continues to surprise. The alien fleet hovered ominously above Earth, but the confidence that had once radiated from their commanders was now replaced by unease. What had been a straightforward invasion was quickly spiraling into something far more complex. The human resistance, though initially fragmented and chaotic, was growing in both strength and coordination. The aliens, once certain of their inevitable victory, now found themselves on the defensive for the first time. Xarel, the Zenith general, stood on the bridge of his flagship, his gaze fixed on the holographic map of Earth's orbit. The blue planet seemed so small, so insignificant from where he stood, yet it had become the site of an ever-deepening crisis. His fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable might, had suffered losses that were becoming impossible to ignore. The humans, those primitive creatures, were using their ingenuity to turn the tide. It was almost as if Earth itself had become a living force, fighting back against the invaders with an almost primal ferocity. "The EMP device is ready," a voice said behind him, interrupting his dark thoughts. It was his second in command, a young Faraxi officer named Norath, whose expression was tight with frustration. "Our engineers believe it could knock out their entire fleet's systems for at least an hour. It should be enough to finish them." Xarel turned to her, his dark eyes narrowing. "An hour isn't enough," he said. "We need more. We need to end this now, before their scattered resistance has time to organize again." In his mind, the humans were like ants, small, weak, but numerous and endlessly persistent. If they were given enough time, they could build something unstoppable. The longer this dragged on, the more they would learn. The general's thoughts were interrupted by another report. Another human counterattack had successfully destroyed another of their scout ships, and the alien forces were once again scrambling to regroup. This time, the humans weren't retreating. They were pushing back. Meanwhile, on Earth, the resistance was gaining momentum. What had started as a few scattered pockets of resistance had turned into a coordinated global effort. One of the most significant developments came from the underground bunker in the Midwest, where a team of engineers, led by Jenna, had succeeded in developing a powerful EMP weapon. The device, cobbled together from alien technology and human ingenuity, had the potential to cripple the alien fleet's central control systems, effectively grounding their ships and rendering them vulnerable for the first time in weeks. With the device ready, the decision was made. Jenna, Marcus, and a small team of the most capable fighters were chosen to deliver the weapon to an orbital launch platform, a relic from Earth's brief attempts at space exploration years ago. Though outdated and barely functional, the platform's launch system was the only viable way to get the EMP into orbit and deliver it directly to the heart of the alien fleet. The journey to the launch site was harrowing. Every mile was a battle as the team fought their way through remnants of the alien forces that had infiltrated major cities. Buildings lay in ruins, and the skies above were streaked with the bright flashes of laser fire. Yet, for every loss, for every setback, humanity's resolve grew stronger. The will to survive, more than any weapon, was their greatest asset. Once they reached the launch platform, the team worked quickly, installing the EMP device into the control system. Jenna's hands moved with precision as she calibrated the device, adjusting the settings to ensure it would maximize the damage to the alien fleet. The platform's automated countdown began. Minutes passed like hours. The hum of the platform's engines reverberated through the steel frame, and the team waited, heartbeats in sync with the countdown. Then, with a sharp blast of energy, the rocket shot into space, the EMP device nestled securely at its core. The team watched from the control center, their faces a mix of fear and hope. The alien fleet, now visible from their orbital view, continued to patrol the skies, unaware of the impending strike. As the missile closed in on its target, Zeryl's voice echoed across the alien command ship. "Deploy countermeasures," he barked, but it was too late. The EMP device hit its mark, sending out a massive pulse of electromagnetic energy that flooded the alien fleet systems. For the first time since the invasion began, the alien ships went silent. The shields went down, the targeting systems failed, communications were severed, and for a brief, terrifying moment, the alien fleet was left helpless. On Earth, the resistance roared to life. Fighter jets, once at the mercy of the invaders' superior technology, now found themselves facing an enemy with no shields, no coordinated defense, and no way to communicate. The tide had turned. Back on the alien flagship, Zeryl gripped the armrest of his chair, his face ashen. This can't be happening. How did they? He couldn't finish the thought. The failure was too complete, too total. The human resistance had just unleashed a weapon that threatened to change the course of the war. And for the first time since the invasion began, the aliens weren't sure if they could win. Humanity takes a bold step towards regaining control, using its ingenuity to develop and deploy a weapon capable of crippling the alien fleet. The EMP strike is a pivotal moment, as it shifts the balance of power, leaving the alien fleet vulnerable for the first time. The aliens, once so sure of their victory, are left reeling, and Earth's resistance seizes the opportunity to fight back with full force. The stage is set for a final, decisive confrontation. The alien fleet, once a towering monolith of invincibility, now floated above Earth like a beast crippled by its own arrogance. The electromagnetic pulse had torn through their systems, rendering their advanced technology useless. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens were no longer in control. Their ships, vulnerable and blind, drifted in space like sitting ducks. Communications were down, Shields had failed, and weapon systems were dead in the water. It was a moment of stunned silence before chaos erupted. On the bridge of the Zenith flagship, Xeral's fists tightened around the console. The once unshakable general, who had steeled himself for victory, now felt an unfamiliar cold sweat run down his spine. His fleet, his forces, everything he had built for this invasion, had been brought to its knees by the very species he had considered weak and primitive. They'd done the impossible. Xaral muttered through clenched teeth. How could they know how to exploit our systems so thoroughly? Behind him, Norath, his second-in-command, stared at the flashing diagnostics. General, we've lost over 70% of our combat capability. The EMP blast affected us across the entire fleet. We cannot restore full functionality unless we retreat and repair. But if we leave, Earth will regroup. Then we fight. Xaral snapped. His voice was steady, but there was a tinge of desperation in it now. We press forward. We finish this, even if we have to do it in hand-to-hand combat. As the alien commanders bickered among themselves, the atmosphere on Earth was anything but defeated. Humanity had just been given a miraculous opportunity, and it was not about to squander it. From the ground, from the air, from every corner of the planet, the resistance rose with a singular purpose. It was now or never. In the heart of a once-destroyed New York City, Marcus, the cop-turned-resistance leader, stood with his makeshift militia. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of burned metal, but the spirit of his people was unbroken. His team had been the first to secure alien weapons and reverse-engineer them. Now, with the EMP strike disrupting the alien fleet, they were ready to take the fight to the invader's heart. We've got one shot at this, Marcus said, rallying his team. The aliens are stunned. Their systems are down. We hit them hard now, or we may never get another chance. Around him, armed civilians nodded. They were not soldiers, but they had something the aliens could never have predicted: determination. Marcus's team, armed with a mix of alien and human technology, moved swiftly toward their target, a once imposing alien command center that was now vulnerable to assault. In the skies above Earth, the humans were moving just as decisively. Akin, the former commercial airline pilot who had been a reluctant hero, now led a squadron of fighter jets, each one a patchwork of parts scavenged from downed alien ships. With the EMP disabling their enemies' defenses, the humans swarmed through the alien fleet like a swarm of angry bees. Earth's makeshift pilots showed no mercy, bombing the damaged alien ships with all the fury of a species that had been pushed to the brink. Each explosion from the ground and the sky fueled the growing fire of humanity's resolve. The aliens were stunned by the ferocity of Earth's retaliation, and what had begun as a calculated military operation was now slipping into disarray. The Zenith fleet was slowly being torn apart by Earth's relentless attack. Back in space, Xaral was pacing, furious. The aliens had underestimated humans at every turn, but now they were paying the price. The strike had been brutal, and it was clear that the humans were no longer just defending. They were attacking with purpose. "We need to pull back," Xaral said, voice now low with frustration. "We are not prepared for this kind of fight. We can't win a battle of attrition with them." The Firaxi admiral, who had been silent for most of the battle, finally spoke up, his voice cold. "What if we do not retreat, General? What if we instead escalate, bringing everything we have to bear? Can we not crush them with superior force?" Xaral glared at him. "We already tried superior force. They have adapted to everything we threw at them. I will not waste what's left of our fleet. We must rethink our strategy. We cannot underestimate them again." As the battle on Earth raged, humanity's greatest weapon was becoming more apparent: their ability to adapt faster than the aliens could predict. Each new weapon, each new tactic, seemed to surprise the invaders. It wasn't just brute force that was winning the day. It was the ingenuity of the humans, their willingness to learn, to improvise, and to never surrender. and in the alien fleet's crippled command center, the final, haunting realization began to dawn on Cyril. The war was no longer about defeating Earth. It was about surviving it. The turning point for both the humans and the aliens, humanity's unexpected technological advancements and resilience, are now beginning to overwhelm the invaders. As Earth's forces launch a decisive counterattack, the aliens' once pristine plan begins to unravel. The humans' refusal to back down is now the aliens' greatest threat, and Cyril is forced to confront the reality that their invasion may be spiraling out of control. The stage is set for a final showdown, as the last remnants of the alien fleet prepare to make their last stand. The alien fleet was crumbling. Cyril, the Zenith general, paced in the dim light of his command ship's bridge, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. The once pristine fleet, so vast and formidable, was now scattered and disorganized, its power systems in chaos. The EMP strike had been devastating, but it was the relentless assault from Earth that had proven to be the final blow. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying for it. His mind raced as he tried to calculate their next move. The Zenith ships were still functional in patches, and the Firaxi had managed to bring a few weapon systems back online, but the damage was severe. Earth's resistance had proven far more resilient than anticipated. The Zenith fleet was in disarray, but it still had one last card to play. General, Norath's voice cut through the silence, her tone uncharacteristically somber. We can no longer continue this battle in the traditional way. We have sustained too much damage. If we do not act decisively, Earth will overrun us. We must consider a different option. Cyril glanced at her, his eyes dark with frustration. He knew what she was suggesting, and the very thought sickened him. But the truth was undeniable. The invasion had failed, and retreating would be a humiliation far worse than any defeat. If they wanted to survive, they had to be willing to do whatever it took to bring an end to this conflict. We could escalate, Norath continued, her voice steady but dangerous. Use the planet-killer weapon. It's our final option. But if we use it, Earth will be wiped out, every last human. We can regain control then. Cyril's heart froze at the mention of the weapon. The planet-killer was the Zenith's ultimate deterrent, a massive ship capable of obliterating an entire planet with a single strike. It was a weapon they had only ever used once before, on a world far from Earth. It was considered an option of last resort, an irreversible measure. But now, with the alien fleet on the brink of collapse, it was the only thing that could guarantee their survival. He hesitated, his mind torn between the desire for vengeance and the recognition that this would be the end of everything, of their conquest, their mission, and the very future of their people. If they fired the weapon, Earth would be reduced to ash, and humanity, this unpredictable, relentless species, would be gone forever. But the alternative was certain destruction. Cyril turned to Norath, his decision made. Prepare the planet killer. Make the necessary calculations. We will end this. As he spoke, a sense of cold determination filled him. The Zenith were conquerors, and they would not be humbled. But deep inside, a nagging voice reminded him of something that had begun to haunt him since the first signs of Earth's resistance, the true cost of victory, and whether or not it would even be worth it. Meanwhile, on Earth, the tide was turning in favor of humanity. The last-ditch offensive from the aliens had faltered. While Earth's cities were scared from the invaders' early bombardments, the resistance had found their footing. Armed with alien technology, Earth's makeshift forces were now more than capable of facing the enemy head-on. Jenna, Marcus, and their team had successfully infiltrated one of the alien command outposts in the European theater, using the recovered alien weapons to cause havoc. They were on their way to the alien command center, where the heart of the Zenith leadership was located, to deliver a final blow. Humanity's unyielding will to survive had proven to be a far greater weapon than the aliens had ever expected. And yet, even as Earth's forces surged forward, Jenna couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something far more dangerous was coming. She had seen the signs, the growing desperation among the invaders, the whispers about a final weapon. She didn't know exactly what it was, but she knew enough to understand that the aliens were preparing to unleash something catastrophic. "We need to end this now," Jenna said, her voice tight with urgency as she relayed her concerns to Marcus. "They're cornered, but that doesn't mean they won't destroy everything if they have to." Marcus nodded, gripping the controls of their makeshift vehicle as they sped through the war-torn streets. "I know, but we've come too far to back down now. We can't let them win." As the Resistance fought to dismantle the alien command structure, the alien fleet prepared for its final gambit. With the planet killer activated, the clock was ticking. A final confrontation was coming. The stakes higher than ever, with Earth's very survival hanging in the balance. The Zenith General, Xarel, is pushed to the edge, forced to consider using the ultimate weapon to destroy Earth. Meanwhile, the human resistance grows ever stronger, aware that the aliens are not yet finished. The tension escalates as the looming threat of the planet killer weapon casts a dark shadow over the final phase of the war. The fate of Earth hangs in the balance as both sides prepare for a decisive confrontation. The tension in the air was palpable as Terrell stared at the holographic display of Earth from the bridge of his flagship. The planet killer was primed and ready, its weapon systems activated. He stood at the precipice of a decision that could wipe out every living human on Earth, an action that would ensure the survival of the Zenith, but at an unspeakable cost. The memories of the resistance, of the ingenuity and fire that humanity had shown, burned in his mind. The thought of their extinction, obliterated in a single blast, was almost unbearable. Yet, the alternative, total defeat, was worse. "General," Norath's voice cut through the silence. "The weapon is ready for firing. It will eliminate the entire planet. There will be no survivors." Xarel remained motionless, his eyes locked on the rotating globe of Earth. It would be over. Humanity's brief existence, its vibrant history, its relentless fight for survival, would be nothing but a memory. But despite the cold logic of their plan, something gnawed at him. Humanity's tenacity, their will to endure against insurmountable odds, had left an impression. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like it. "Fire," Xarel said finally, his voice betraying none of the inner conflict raging within him. As the command was relayed, a tremor ran through the ship. On the alien flagship, the last light of hope for Earth flickered, its fate sealed by the alien hand. On Earth, the Resistance was unaware of the looming destruction. Humanity had regrouped, its forces scattered across the planet, but each unit was fighting as one. Jenna, Marcus, and their team were deep within the heart of the alien command center, attempting to disable the last remnants of their enemy's leadership. They had fought their way through hell to get here, and the end was finally in sight. "We can do this," Jenna said, a grim determination in her voice. "We just need to destroy their command structure. We've already crippled their fleet. Now we finish it." But even as she spoke, a sudden shift in the air, an unsettling hum, alerted them that something was wrong. The ground beneath them vibrated, and the walls around them began to shake. At first it was subtle, then harder, as though the very planet was reacting to the violence unfolding in the skies above. "What the hell is that?" Marcus shouted, clutching his rifle. A communication screen flickered to life, and the voice of a commander, breathless and frantic, crackled through the static. "The planet killer is armed. The Zenith fleet is targeting Earth. We need to stop them. Now." Jenna's heart sank as the realization hit. The aliens weren't just retreating. They were preparing to annihilate the planet. "We need to get to the launch systems," she said, her voice urgent. "We can't let them fire that weapon." The team sprinted toward the heart of the alien command center, hacking into the systems as they moved, but it was clear that time was running out. The countdown had begun. Above Earth, the alien fleet was already activating the planet killer weapon. Its massive destructive power was now aimed directly at the heart of the Earth. A blast of energy, capable of vaporizing entire continents, was moments away from release. Back on Earth, humanity's final hope lay in the hands of the Resistance. Jenna and Marcus had found the control center for the weapon, but as they tried to deactivate it, the systems were too secure. The countdown was almost over. Jenna's hands flew over the alien controls, bypassing protocols, trying desperately to stop the impending disaster. "We can't let this happen," she muttered to herself. The future of their entire species depended on this moment. "Almost there," Marcus said, keeping an eye on the clock. And then, the breakthrough. Jenna's fingers hit the final command. And for a moment, nothing happened. The seconds seemed to stretch on forever, but then, the hum stopped. The countdown froze. The weapon was disarmed. Jenna looked at Marcus, the weight of the moment sinking in. They had done it. The planet killer was no longer a threat. But just as they began to breathe a sigh of relief, the alarm system blared to life, signaling that the alien fleet was launching a full-scale assault in retaliation. Xarel had made his final move. If he couldn't destroy Earth with the planet killer, he would simply level every city with his remaining forces. As the alien ships began to regroup and launch new attacks, Earth's survivors, their cities, their homes, were in their final moments of defense. Humanity's last stand had begun. But then, out of nowhere, a series of bright flashes appeared across the alien fleet. The sky above them erupted in brilliant streaks of light. Earth's final weapon, an EMP blast from the orbital platforms, using the very technology the aliens had sought to use against them, flared to life. Xarel's command ship was the first to go dark, and then the rest of the fleet followed. One by one, the alien ships lost power, and Earth's airspace was clear. The aliens, their once powerful forces now completely neutralized, drifted aimlessly, helpless against the tide of humanity's resilience. The finality of it all hit the alien forces hard. They had not only been defeated, they had been outsmarted. Xarel, gazing down at Earth from his command ship, knew it was over. The war was lost. His fleet was decimated, and humanity had done the unthinkable. He, who had come to Earth with the conviction that their conquest was inevitable, was now left with nothing. And Earth, against all odds, had won. Humanity's resilience proves too much for the invaders. Jenna and Marcus, despite the impending doom of the planet killer, managed to disarm the weapon in time, only to face one final desperate assault from the alien fleet. Earth's ingenuity, however, prevails once again, as an EMP strike disables the alien ships. The war ends, and Earth is victorious, having triumphed over a far more advanced enemy.